Hey guys, I'm Alex.
And I'm Drew.
And today on the Two Man Comic Book Club podcast, we're taking a look at more indie comics because indie comics are cool. Let's go. You're going to have to bear with us. We're constantly tweaking the setup in here. If you've been watching, you'll know for sure we've been in the new space since we come back for season 3. We're in my office, which is about 40 or 50 feet away from where we typically record our podcast, but we're trying to make this a new permanent setup. It's much easier on my house. We finally got our rug down and we got some new mics we're trying out. Should be a little more dry in here. But I don't know. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, when I was editing last week, I noticed because normally me and Alex are on a set of condenser mics and Torrance is on a dynamic mic, and the room just came alive during episode 64. And I just noticed whenever I cut over to Torrance's, it was a lot more controlled. So I found a couple just like the one that Torrance uses on eBay. So we're trying those out. If you're an audiophile and you're listening and you, A, prefer the old setup, or B, prefer this one, or C, think that all of it's terrible, just let us know.
Or if you
reach
can't
out.
tell a difference.
Yeah, that would be D. How about D is you just love us regardless.
Yeah, hopefully that.
Yeah.
We're going to jump into some indie books, but first, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this one. We're trying to grow the channel. Also, if you would like to reach out to us on our social media networks, Drew, you always memorize those quicker than I do. What are they?
On Twitter, we are the Two Man Comic Book Club. Two Man Comic Book.
That's it.
On Twitter with the number 2. Instagram, Facebook, it's Two Man Comic Book Club, all with the number 2. Or, let's just go with that.
Yeah. And if you want to follow me personally, it's at Alex Wayne Miller on all social media platforms. Wayne is W-A-Y-N-E, just like Bruce Wayne, because I'm Batman. What about you?
Drew Morris Comp on Twitter, Drew Morris Composer on Instagram.
And for our man in the chair.
My name is Torrance Watkins. You can find me on the internet.
If you could Google Torrance Watkins, you'll find him. Maybe. We've got some cool books for you. So we've only one or maybe 2 other times. We've had a full episode dedicated to non-Big 2 comic books. And honestly, I don't know what they're bringing, but the stuff I am bringing up is definitely not like far off the beaten path. They're definitely, I think I'm only doing Dark Horse and Image stuff today. Okay. So there's definitely more like Boom Comics and IDW and even way farther down the rabbit hole than that. But we've got some cool books for you. I think you're going to like them. These are going to be attempted spoiler-free. Yeah. Just enough to grab you and maybe interest you in reading them and checking them out. But before we get into that, what you been reading, yo?
I've done more watching than reading, but I have done some reading in addition to the indie stuff. I've been working my way through the Netflix Marvel shows.
Oh, cool.
I'm like a couple into
The Defenders. And
Iron Fist season 1, watching them chronologically.
What are you thinking so far, spoiler-free, of Iron Fist specifically?
I'm enjoying that one okay.
Most people
I've heard people didn't like
don't like it. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I'm like,
it's not as good as Daredevil or Jessica Jones.
But I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah.
2.5, 3 episodes in.
Right.
I also started reading the Court of Owls,
Batman story.
I'm only like 1 or 2 into that, but enjoying it so far. And I also read the 3 books that are currently available on DC Universe Infinite, Dunder Mifflin Infinity, for American Vampire 1976.
I've seen that. Who writes
Scott
that?
Snyder?
Scott Snyder, and there's some...
I can't remember the other
I think
names.
there's another artist. Can you look up the creative team for that one, Tori?
But yeah, I started reading it just because it popped up, and I was like, oh, it's a short one. There's only 3 out on the app right now. And midway through it, I kept seeing the little tags be like, want to see how this happened? Check out American Vampire number 3. And I'm like, or like number 78. And I'm like, oh, I guess this has been around for a while. I didn't know about the original ones. This is like the 1976 version.
Right. There's It's relatively new, right? The version,
These
or the
are
volume that you're reading.
Yeah, because I mean, I think I'm at the point where they're the 6 month behind. There's
Okay.
only 3 out because that's
Yeah. And DC
all
is
in the
still on
window.
a 6-month window.
It has to be new because it's DC Black label.
Oh, Black Label
So
stuff.
it's
Yeah,
a newer
it is
one.
new. Did you find that, Tori?
No, I started looking and I realized I was looking at the wrong thing. So what was I looking up again?
It's American Vampire what? 76?
American Vampire, I think it's 1976 or 1967. It's one of those two.
And we think it's Scott Snyder.
I might be able to find it.
American.
Oh,
If it,
yeah.
Wait, 1976 is the name. That's not.
That's
when
the
it came out.
title.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. Yeah.
And it's part of the Black Label series, which I think is intended for
Mature audiences.
mature audiences. So just have that knowledge.
I found it.
Whoa.
If you just
I
want.
didn't realize Stephen King was also a co-writer on that.
Oh wow, Scott Snyder and Stephen King.
Well, at
Or
least
did he used to do part of it?
Scott Snyder was number 1 through present. Stephen King was number 1 through 5.
okay.
Cool.
I thought I remembered seeing Stephen King's name on it somewhere. That might be why I actually clicked into it, but I don't know that I've.
Do you have the rest of the creative team on there by chance? I'm so bad, and I'm trying to, because I'm like, if I use
I've
Twitter
got the
for any,
artists,
cool.
Raphael Albuquerque and Mateus Santaluco are the 2 artists that
Cool.
are listed anyway.
Awesome. I'm trying to do better about listing all the creative team. I'm so bad about it. I'm on comics Twitter pretty often. It's the main thing I use Twitter for is just comic nerd stuff. And very often, like almost daily, there's at least one tweet of, don't forget to credit the entire team because it takes a lot of work on everybody's behalf. Like,
And I realized when I was editing the Flashpoint ones, I don't think I mentioned a single.
we didn't mention the
Artist
team. Yeah, we're
or-
so bad.
I mean, at least we were consistent. We didn't mention anybody because it was 73 books. So covered over the span of like 2-3 episodes.
Right.
There would have been an entire episode just saying names. So sorry about that. Obviously, it wouldn't be cool. You know, it wouldn't have been the same without the writers and the artists because it wouldn't exist. So
That's correct.
we're grateful for them. And I just, for whatever reason, I think I was in such a hurry to get through it all over the span of the episodes we had
Right.
that I was a bum.
Yeah,
and
we were
didn't do
moving quick. We're going to do our best to mention those, though. Call us out. I'm fine with that. That would mean you're interacting with us.
it. What about you, Alex? What you been reading, yo?
I've done enough prep just by my casual reading of indie stuff that it just kind of naturally worked out that I had several books to talk about when we got here. But I'm still working my way through all the X books. I'm on like probably 10 or 11, number 10 to 11 for like 6 or 7 different X books that are going on right now. I'm still like trying to power through all those because I want to get to this. I'm so far away from this. I'm trying to get to the gala, like the Mutant Gala event that's going on. And I'm like, I bet I have to read 100 issues before I get to that. I've also been reading, I'm fully caught up on Strange Adventures. That is, let me see, I have the credits for that right here. Tom King, Mitch Gerads, and Evan Shaner. Now, the cool thing about this comic is it is a DC Black Label, and it follows Adam Strange, but it's telling 2 stories simultaneously, and depending on what story, the artists change. So it switches back from Mitch Gerads and
Yeah,
Evan Shaner.
I read the first half of the first book, and I noticed that I was like, I think I put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
It was a different time or whatever. But
Yeah, super cool. It's Tom King, which if you listen to our Vision series, is the same writer for that team. Did I think Walta was the artist for that one? No, I don't think it was the same artist. But Tom King's a writer, and I'm becoming a major fan of his. Just his entire style of storytelling is really cool. It's not a punch 'em explosion comic at all. Like, and neither was Vision. It's like, you know, there's rich dialogue and just great storytelling between the characters. And that's not an indie book, so I won't spend too much time on it. But that one, I'm almost caught up on the most recent run of Iron Man by Christopher Cantwell and team. Those are between Strange Adventures, Iron Man, and the new Eternals book that Kieran Gillen. I'm so bad at names. I'm so sorry, Kieran. I know you're listening. those are the 3 that I'm allowing myself to actually buy floppies of. Excuse my stomach. Otherwise, that's about it. I mean, I say that's it. That's like 6 or 7 titles, and there's several issues in between all of them. Or there's some more stuff that's not here yet that I'll talk about probably on the next issue. But yeah, what about you, Tor? You been reading anything?
Not so much reading. I finished the TV show Sweet Tooth, the first season.
Cool. I haven't even started yet.
I've been told, because I haven't read it, that the TV show is a lot more cute than
I've only watched the first episode, and I will,
but you've read all of the books.
I've read all the books, and I would say yeah, just based off of what I've seen of the first episode, it feels it's a totally different tone than the book.
That's what I heard from our friend of the podcast, DJ.
Hey, DJ.
What's up, man?
He's read...
Let's play games soon.
Yeah. He's read all of Jeff Lemire's Sweet Tooth, and he considers that more of a horror than...
I think I can see that.
At least if you're going to be comparing the two.
Interesting.
So, I haven't read it, so I don't have a good...
I might talk a little bit more about the comparisons because I plan to talk about Sweet Tooth.
Cool.
The book series once we get to it. But yeah, did you enjoy the series at least?
I loved it.
Cool.
It seems to be doing pretty well. I haven't seen any of it, but I've heard good things.
It's been in the top 10 on Netflix for a little bit.
Cool.
And I think it's...
I didn't realize, I'm not giving anything away. It was literally the first episode. Will Forte?
I know. It took me a while to recognize
was just like,
him.
What? Oh, man. And that's one of the things. Like, the dad, I never would have thought as being a funny guy, let alone Will Forte. So, like, that already, I was just like, okay, this is a different direction. Like, just from that choice.
Which I
right
wouldn't
there.
say that they play it up as a
No,
funny
it's
guy.
he's not. I mean, other than just what's the word? Just like the way that he carries himself is generally amusing.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Cool. Any other last calls before we jump into the indie books that we wanted to cover?
No, nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
I might say one thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to scoot this just a little closer for whenever you're talking.
Yeah. I guess I can be a little more up on the mic. Again, thank you for being patient with us through this trial and error of our equipment.
Yep.
I guess we can just say we are less than 12 hours away from, less than 12 hours away from another episode of Loki. At the time of this recording, there have been 2 episodes. I am a huge fan. Why is it that, like, just time travel in general, you can just not wear it out for me, at least? I don't know. It's cool. They're doing creative stuff with it.
So many different theories. You can take it so many different ways.
Yeah. It's just good. It's good storytelling.
I concur.
Yeah, I really like it. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that we are caught up on that, and we'll be getting more tomorrow. I heard a quote from Tom Hiddleston saying that his favorite, and I believe he used the words like most surprising, with considering the direction the show is taking in regards to the MCU proper. 4 and 5, he says, are pretty big. So I'm excited to see what he's talking about, because I have no idea where they're going with this still after. I mean, it's not a bad thing.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, as I was watching it, I haven't had any like moments where I'm just like, oh man, wow. It's always it's like a slow burn, like developing what's about to be happening, you know. And obviously we had some pretty big drops on episode 2, but like I'm still developing my mind about what's going on with it.
Right. So. Yeah. I'm excited to check it out. There was a pretty massive reveal at the end of episode 2. I won't spoil anything.
My wife fell asleep during the second episode, and she woke up in time to say, "Who's that?"
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, and I said a little bit, and I was like, "Did you fall
start.
asleep?" And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, there's a lot to go into." So, because she slept she wasn't paying attention when I watched the first episode on release night. So we rewatched the first episode before we watched the second episode. So tomorrow, we'll rewatch the second episode before the third episode, and then she'll fall asleep during the third episode.
Yeah.
So that's just how it goes.
Way to be Holly.
Yeah. Hey, I'm getting to watch more Loki. So
It's true. We'll watch it again, I think, just because.
and we watched the 2 Legends things beforehand.
I didn't
both-
watch
both
those.
times
What was
also.
the second one?
The Tesseract.
Oh, okay. Just context for the Tesseract. Cool. Who wants to go first? Do we want to just...
I may have. I think I have 4 to talk about. So if I go, and then you go, and then we'll just bounce around.
Do it.
If you watched the last video, which would have actually been 2 episodes ago, you would have seen how much of a professional I am. I even made a comment about it on the screen. All right, so I have to decide which one to talk about first. I'm going to go backwards on my list. Well, no, actually, because we were just talking about Sweet Tooth, I'll go ahead and start with Sweet Tooth.
Yes.
Jeff Lemire, the writer and the artist. He didn't do the inks, but I noticed I thought that was pretty cool. Before I actually get into the story, reading Sweet Tooth made me want to actually. I read one of them that Alex is going to cover. So the combination of reading that and Sweet Tooth over the span of like a day made me want to release my own comic book more than anything I've ever read or watched in my life, because there's a rawness to the art of Sweet Tooth, which I think is part of why people might think that it's a cuter thing on Netflix, because it's like it's human beings.
There's definitely some edge to it.
It's like it looks they're regular humans, but there's humans. I'm a Ferengi. Oh no, they say humans. But there's the art. It's playful. Like it's not super photorealistic. It's like
Yeah, we can throw some panels up on the screen
I
now.
will. A guy's like doodling. It looks, and Jeff kind of honed in on what exactly he wanted that to look like over the span of the 40 issues. So like the first one, you're like, oh, this looks like this person's just learning to draw as they're doing this, which I know isn't the case.
Right.
They already had a style and everything, but like it becomes more refined, more honed.
Yeah.
And I went back after I read the issue 40, and I went and looked at the art of issue 1 again, just because I wanted to see the difference. And there's a pretty stark difference. But yeah, but it's a cool story. I can say a little bit without giving too much away. Well, actually, I don't know if I want to, because that was the thing. The book, or the first episode of the Netflix show gave away like 6 or 10 books worth of information right at the beginning.
Really?
That's why I haven't watched yet, because I want to read it.
Yeah. And I was actually thinking, would I recommend people to read it before they watch it? And I don't know. I'm kind of torn, because this one of other ones that I've done that with, I'm kind of like, I wonder how I would appreciate it differently. I wish this is one of those times I wish you could take a pill and forget everything about, so you could like experience things twice. But yeah, like without giving a bunch of spoilers away, in case you're the sort of person that wants to read it versus the person that wants to watch it, there's some stuff that's happened with the world. And whether you watch the video or the read it, it kind of gives you a different entry into it. But basically, the main character is a boy who has the ears and antlers of a deer, a hybrid. And yeah, man, I feel like I should give more, but I just don't want to spoil anything for people. I liked it. And if you have been listening to this show long enough to think that maybe we're on the same wavelength, I think you'd like it too. It's worth reading because I enjoyed the art wholeheartedly.
It is all hand.
With my whole hand, I loved the art.
Yeah.
And I think it says a lot that I read the first couple just to see if maybe the Netflix show would be worth watching. And then over the span of 24 hours, 36 hours, I read the entire series. So that says something. And it's all on DC Universe because it was a Vertigo title.
Right.
bought by DC. So you can read if you have DC Universe, and I think also it's on Comixology Unlimited. I don't know if the whole run of it is, but it's out there. Like if you have access to any of the streaming, the downloadable, the PDF comic services,
Right.
it's out there. I would recommend reading it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's doing extremely well on Netflix, and also, I mean, everybody's raving about the comic. Like, yes, go read the comic; it's really good.
It's funny because I had to look it up because of some of the stuff that they're talking about right in the beginning, and this is like from 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's an older book, and I didn't realize that because honestly, I thought somebody wrote this in reaction to the coronavirus until I realized, oh no, there's 40 books of this. That would have had to been a quick turnaround. Then I looked and I was like, oh, it's like from 2010, 2011 or something like that. So yeah, it was around long before that.
Yeah, Jeff Lemire, also big name in comics. Like,
Yeah.
he's kind of been around, done a lot of stuff. He's actually one of the writers for one of the series that I'm talking about. But also, I don't even think he's super known for this book, but I think the first Jeff Lemire book that I ever read was All New X-Men with Laura Kinney, or sorry, All New Wolverine, rather, not All New X-Men, with Laura Kinney as Wolverine, X-23. And that was, for some reason, I just cannot hear his name without thinking of that X book first. But
I think some of the other ones that I was looking into reading, his name was attached to also, but there was a little snafu with the Comixology thing, and I don't remember what I had read on most of them. So, but yeah, he seems to be a cool guy. I definitely want to look for more of his stuff.
for sure. All right, you want me to do one?
Yeah.
Well, I'll just keep it on the Jeff Lemire train. One series that I wanted to talk about is Black Hammer. Now, this is a Dark Horse book. Dark Horse and Image are probably like the next. If you read Marvel and DC are 1 and 2. Those are interchangeable depending on what characters you like. And then I would argue that 3 and 4 are also probably interchangeable with, in my mind, maybe an edge to Image, but I don't know. I don't know if I can back that up. They're definitely not a no-name publisher, and they have all the big names that write for DC and Marvel. So it's kind of like a known trope that you kind of pay your bills with Marvel and DC books, but you do your passion projects and the indie stuff with, the other ones. And Dark Horse and Image pick up a lot of those. But anyway, this is a Dark Horse one called Black Hammer. This is a trade of issues 5 through 6, I believe. I have the other trade somewhere. I'm just going to put this up on camera. I'll just do a better picture of that. So Black Hammer, this is a team of Jeff Lemire, Dean Ormston, David Rubin, and Dave Stewart. Is a really interesting one. It's kind of a superhero book, but it takes place in a kind of a vague world. I forget the name of it. It sounds like a superhero city. But there's this, you start off and you're just on this farm with this team of superheroes, and they're all kind of stuck there, you find out pretty quickly. Everybody can go into town. They don't really know exactly where they are, but they can go into town. The townspeople can leave that town. Where, to my knowledge, 6 or 7, 8 issues in, I don't know if we're in an alternate reality, but it seems that everybody else is able to leave in this normal world.
Is the name of the town Hotel California?
It's not.
Okay.
But that would have been really cool. And we don't know why they're there or how they're there or why they can't leave. But there's some real interesting dynamics. For instance, one of the characters, I'm so bad at remembering their names, but there's a superhero who you at first think is a little girl, but you find out that she's kind of like a reverse version of Shazam. I should mention they're all like kind of loosely based on variations of very popular superheroes in this. But it's this woman, she says a magic word, and she becomes a child that has all these superpowers. And while she's on this farm, she's stuck in that form. She keeps trying to say the word, but she won't go back. So she's 50-something years old because she's from like the golden age, and she's stuck in this little girl's body. Adds for some pretty funny moments because she's like a chain smoker, and to keep up appearances and not let everybody know anything, they're like having to make her go to school, and it leads up. There's a bunch of cool stuff. I don't want to say much more, but Black Hammer, by the team that I mentioned before from Dark Horse, is a super cool one. More Jeff Lemire. You guys should check it out. Also available on Comixology, I think. If not, it's worth finding, hunting down the trades.
Cool.
Got another one for you?
Yeah. I'm going to talk about one that was just a 6-issue run, and this is me being terrible. I'm going to have to look up who it was. Or do you want?
I can look
are you
it
on
up.
Comixology? King
It
of
can be.
Nowhere.
Oh, you were telling me
Yeah.
about this
King
one.
of Nowhere. I just read it because the art struck me. It was a beautiful book. That was the thing about, like, I think we talked about the same thing in the last indie episode, that so many of these indie books are beautiful and they're all completely different than one another in terms of their art style. And King of Nowhere, like every single page was like, I think it was like all watercolor looking. It was awesome.
Oh, this is written by Maxwell Prince. He did Ice Cream Man, which
I
I,
don't know
almost
Ice Cream
read
Man.
more of to bring up. Maybe I'll bring it up when we're done. So this is written by Maxwell Prince, Tyler Jenkins, and Hillary Jenkins. I'm assuming are the artists, probably illustrator and colors.
Yeah. It was so it just opens up on this guy and he's just like waking up in this place and he doesn't understand where it is. And it's funny because I read this pretty soon after Sweet Tooth, and like he realizes that there's people all around him that are like hybridizations of animals. And they live in this town called Nowhere. That's what they call it. It was something else, like Northwestern something. But just what's the chaos follows this guy as he's walking around. I mean, it's only 6 issues. They dig in deep, and it can't give away too much. But I enjoyed it. It is more mature in nature.
This
but-
one's from Boom Comics, by the way.
Thank you. But man, it was a beautiful read, and like the music, the visual package was awesome.
Yeah, just looking at some of these covers, if their art's anything like that, I'm for sure gonna read it. This is cool.
Yeah, it was really good, and it was a short read, worth every second. It was an interesting story. It kind of the big reveal kind of surprised me. I didn't see it coming, but I thought it was really good, so I highly recommend King of Nowhere.
Cool. We're gonna take a quick break, and I'm gonna jump back with my next entry. See you in a second. All right, just to go off of what we just were talking about, Maxwell Prince, who wrote King of Nowhere that Drew was just talking about, also did Ice Cream Man, which is an ongoing series right now. It is so cool. It's an Eisner. It was definitely nominated for an Eisner. I don't know if it won or not, but it's a horror comic. And it's kind of, I'm not going to spend much time on it all. I'm just going to say it's kind of like a Twilight Zone in that there's a bunch of different stories. All of
Kind of like an anthology type thing.
yeah. All of them are not necessarily related by anything other than the Ice Cream Man, who, wherever he goes, seems to kind of be behind these dreadful things that keep happening. It's really weird and creepy, but beautifully drawn. Lots of pastel colors. Whoever's editing this, throw up a couple panels and covers just to see what it looks like. Ooh, that was nice. But just wanted to mention on that one since he kind of naturally came up. The next one that I want to talk about is one of my favorite indie books I think I've ever read.
Yeah, this one?
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, it's really cool. Now, I haven't read a ton of indie stuff, but of all of it, this was the stuff that I've handed off to several people already to read, and I think it's been unanimous that this one's really cool. So this is God Country, also on the screen right now, and the creative team... Where is it? It's in here. So Donnie Cates, and if you've been reading any sort of recent Marvel stuff, you know who that is. He did Silver Surfer Black, Guardians of the Galaxy. He is responsible for the Venom books, and that basically I think was kind of the architect for that total or absolute carnage event that's been taking. That's the most recent major Marvel event. He's also about MME. He's about to take over for Hulk after Al Ewing's series wraps up. And actually, they're trading. Al Ewing is going to Venom. So kind of cool. But anyway, Donnie Cates wrote it. Jeff Shaw drew it. Jason Wordy colored it. John J. Hill did letters and design. And I believe Gerardo Zaffino did some variant covers. I think this one's worth of any that we read today for me to just read some of the synopsis to the back, if that's all right. So, a long time ago out in West Texas, an old man named Emmett Quinlan, was dying from Alzheimer's. His son Roy was stuck between being a father to his own daughter and watching his father fade away into a hateful old monster. And, to make matters worse, a giant tornado was on its way to destroy everything that the Quinlan family held dear. It was in the wake of this storm, however, that everything would change. For the tornado did not come with the world, and it brought something along with it. Sorry, the tornado did not come from this world, and it brought something with it. From the ashes of his home, Emmett Quinlan stood holding an enchanted, indestructible, 12-foot talking sword named Valifax. And as long as he was holding on to it, he was back. His Alzheimer's was cured. He knew his own name again and the faces of the people he loved most. The problem is, folks, that sword didn't really belong to Emmett, and its true owner will stop at nothing to see it returned. God Country is an epic, best-selling, and critically acclaimed miniseries about a family aging, loss, and letting go. From the creative team that brought you Buzzkill, The Paybacks, and the writer of Redneck, Baby Teeth, Ghost Fleet, and more.
It was good.
It's really good. The art's incredible. The storytelling is really cool. It's just 6 issues. This right here, if you buy this trade, that's the whole thing. I'm pretty sure there's no plans to... I mean, maybe it could.
It could.
For sure. It's so good. I also
good.
I also am pretty sure I read somewhere that Donnie Cates had a near-death experience. Was in the hospital, almost died right before he wrote this book. And I think a lot of whatever he went through invoked some of the emotions that you pull from that. But it is primo storytelling. Definitely my favorite thing that I'm sharing today, but I didn't tell it last for reasons that you'll find out shortly. Yeah. Anyway, on to you, my friend.
Could you look up the creative team for Birthright?
Yes.
In Comixology. So Birthright, it had a really grabbing cover whenever I was scrolling through Comixology. And after I'd read a few, it was like, maybe you'll like these. And I was just like, yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. Like 6 or 7 different books. But Birthright.
Is this the one?
That's the one. That's the one. Insert Fred Armisen gif.
Yeah. This is Joshua Williamson and Andre Brayson, I believe I'm saying that correctly. I'm trying to find who published it. Oh, no, sorry. Andre Brayson, also Adriano Lucas. And this is Image and Skybound.
Skybound, yeah. I think maybe it's like Skybound is a division of Image.
Okay.
That's the vibe I got. Anyway, so for Birthright, it opens up, and I'm just going to say just enough. Mm-hmm. If you like fantasy, Lord of the Rings, D&D, stuff like that, I think you'd like this. It's about a dad is playing catch with his son, and he throws the ball into the woods and gets a phone call. And he goes to answer the phone call, and the kid's gone. And like he's been gone like for an entire year. This kid has been gone, and like the family fell apart. Wife wanted a divorce. They think that the dad killed him, and then he shows back up. But he's like 28, and he looks like Conan the Barbarian.
Whoa.
Because when he disappeared, he got pulled over to an alternate world where he basically became like as a little kid, he grew up fighting with dragons and things like that. And there's other twists
It became
to it.
hard.
Yeah. But there's more
That's
stuff.
cool.
But he made it. He's without giving too much away, I will say he came back because some bad guys got away from the fantasy world, and he is coming to get them, supposedly. So it's a good story. The art's good. I read the first 2 trade collections of that, and I will keep reading. I think there's more available. I just kind of wanted to cover a few more before we got out of that. But yeah, I would definitely recommend Birthright if you like fantasy stories of any kind.
Yeah, that one sounds cool. Cool. On to my next one. I'm just going to show issue 1 here. I transitioned to this, and this is definitely maybe the newest one that we have on here. So this is a very recent book called Crossover. Now, if you read modern comics at all, especially the indie stuff, You're going to be very aware of this title. It's pretty popular, and in some tweets I saw, maybe even controversial, though I did not do justice in researching why that might be. But from my single read through of the 6 issues that are out, and I know that 7 is on the way, it's very cool. So it's exactly what it sounds like. So by team, Donnie Cates, Jeff Shaw, D. Knief, and John J. Hill, which is all but one of the same team that did God Country. This is a crossover book that Image put out, and it has a bunch of crossovers from legitimate publishers. So far, I haven't seen any of the big two, void of actual just like, okay, that's for sure Superman over there. They're just not saying it. Or that's definitely Batman, or that is for sure Silver Surfer. I don't know if they're going to somehow pull it off. You would think maybe Donnie Cates, being like one of the premier Marvel writers right now, could be like, all right, listen, just let me have Venom for a page. You know, we'll do this. I don't know. They're taking a lot of liberties with inspiration for sure. But I won't say any more than there's a crossover event. This takes place in like Denver, I believe. And this portal to another dimension rips open, and all fictional characters come to life and come into the world. And while that sounds like maybe that's really cool, it's a lot. And it becomes a problem very quickly. Maybe there's some references to some things in the previous books that I've mentioned already. Would be worth checking out for sure if you have interest in those. But I do recommend reading some Black Hammer and some God Country first, amongst other things. There's a lot more than just that, but super cool. They're very meta. They're like referencing the artists and the writers and other writers from
I
other
personally
things.
love that type of stuff. I think some people don't, but I love that stuff.
Yeah, and they like kind of like they're all friends. They're jabbing each other like, Donnie Cates died this morning in a herd of elephants running from the event or something. It's all good fun, but it's a lot of fun. Check that one out, Crossover by Image. Go ahead.
I'm going to talk about one more, and I feel like if you've listened from the beginning, for one, God bless you, but for two, you've probably heard me mention this series before, but I heard about it on a podcast. I can't remember what podcast it was, but there's a series called Skyward. And if you go looking for it, there are multiple Skywards for some reason. You're looking for one that has, for like the cover, just if you see a girl floating, that's probably the right one. But anyway, this is the creative team, according to Comixology, written by Joe Henderson, art by Antonio Fabella, Lee Garbett, and also covers by Lee Garbett, published by Image. So basically, it opens up, there's the guy and talking to his daughter, and his wife is about to, oh, no, he's not talking to his daughter. His daughter's a baby, but he's talking to his wife, who's about to go out for a run. And then all of a sudden, gravity just disappears. I mean, it's not, I don't know if it's totally gone. It's just,
it is lessened.
severely lessened, yeah. And when he runs out to, because he sees his coffee like floating in globules, and he was like, oh no, I was right, or something like that. And he runs out because he's worried about his wife, and she's like floating away because she had just started running, and he wants to save her, but then he hears his daughter crying in her crib, and he panics and he goes after his daughter and never sees the wife again. And then we jump forward like 16, 18 years and this girl's like zipping around town. The world has adjusted to not having gravity. Like people float. That's fine, but you have to be careful. Like a couple issues in, you get to see what a rainstorm looks like, and it's ridiculous. And it's just the before like problems or even like the first big bad or whatever you want to call it is even introduced. I was just enamored the first couple books, just trying to realize, this is a really fleshed out idea of what would happen if gravity disappears. The benefits, the terrible things, the people
really fleshed out their world. It sounds
people living in the sky, basically, these cool skyscrapers for real, and just like flying around. They have every once in a while you'll see something like there will be a crossing sign with a the road crossing, like a crosswalk, and the girl's like, I wonder what that means, because everybody's just
Right.
wherever you want to go. It's really good. I've only read the first 5 or 6 so far. It is one that I do hope to continue reading.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. So it doesn't seem superhero-y at all. Not even fantasy. It's like Chicago just loses its gravity all of a sudden, or
Right.
whatever, in the whole world.
Cool.
But I like it, so I'd highly recommend it.
Awesome. I had one more to mention. There's a chance. Maybe you can call. Did I mention Paper Girls in the?
You mentioned it. I think literally just saying that you liked it and couldn't put it down.
Cool. I'm gonna just expound on it a little bit more. So that is a piece by Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chang. It is actually being made into a series right now, and I will say that it follows like 4 12-year-old newspaper delivery girls, and while they're out delivering papers a morning after Halloween, the town is struck by an invasion from a mysterious force. It is for mature audiences, so keep that in mind before you dive in there. I think they experiment with some children that might have heard curse words and got really excited about it, and it becomes part of their vernacular. So, Sarah, you'll love it. I think that's it for me. What about you, Tori? You have any recommendations before we wrap up on the indie vibes?
Just a couple quick suggestions. Saga and Habibi. We don't have a whole lot of time to go into them, but both ones I think that you should check out. Saga is who does that?
He was also Vaughn, right? So,
Yeah, I was wondering what who produced or published it.
Oh, that's an Image Comics for sure.
Image,
yeah, Brian
okay.
K. Vaughan. So same guy that does Paper Girls, and Fiona Staples, I believe, does the art.
Right. And Habibi by Craig Thompson, which is
How do you spell that?
Habibi,
Yeah.
Habibi.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I actually just bought it while we were talking.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So is it actually a graphic novel?
Yeah, it's a graphic novel.
Okay, Craig Thompson.
He has another book called Blankets, which is really good. I was just reading how Habibi is a little problematic because it's I'm not going to get into it. There's reasons why you could find it problematic. I don't think that they're valid reasons. It is a white guy talking about the Middle East in a futuristic sense.
Okay, I mean, I get it. I will also mention that Saga, while regarded as one of the probably greatest indie comics of all time, is also not for the faint of heart.
No.
If you,
You open up on the very first panel, and it tells you
it tells you exactly what
this
comic it's
isn't
going to be.
Care Bears.
Yeah, yeah. So take with that information, or do with that information what you will.
I think they're both provocative and worth a read.
Yeah.
So
For sure. What else? That went smooth. I feel I was super prepared for that. one.
I mean, it's different whenever you just need to give the 1,000
A synopsis
the
in general.
view, whatever, as opposed to going panel by panel.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are all great. I definitely want to check out some of them that Alex and Torrance mentioned. Bonus that a lot of them are available digitally, so you don't have to necessarily go and buy it in paper format, though you totally can. I've almost switched to the point where, whenever you lent me God Country,
Yeah.
I
It's
was
kind of annoying, wasn't it?
I was trying to read in bed and I couldn't because my wife's trying to go to sleep. I need to turn the light off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different whenever I'm reading during the day
Right.
in the sun shining in
Yeah.
or whatever. But
I take these to Poor John's and I'll read a comic book with some coffee. That's the thing. But I agree. It's
digital
so much
is
more
so much
convenient.
because you can just all right, zoom in, let's go panel,
Yep.
advance. Yeah.
Also, it's a backlit. It's on the
Yes.
iPad. Could do nothing more than read comics, and I'd still own it.
Yeah, I bought it. I for years I tried to justify why I could buy it, and I finally did, thinking, all right, I can read comics, I can use it to have music on my music stand at gigs without having to worry about the lighting anywhere. But yeah, I use it 99% of the time right now for comic book. Oh, actually, lately YouTube videos. So.
Yeah, it's the ultimate media consumption device, especially if you're a comic book reader. I will say, first, I'm going to preface this. If you have a local comic book shop, support them. It's not easy to be a comic book owner. But if you don't have a local comic book shop, like I don't, you can get a lot of these trade paperbacks, which are bigger collections, for usually $10 cheaper than like going to Barnes and Noble or anything. Like there's been a couple times I've been to Barnes and Noble, even like, oh, I'm going to buy this. I look online, it's $10 to $15 cheaper to get it on Amazon.
The only time I bought trades at Barnes and Noble is like if it was crunch time.
Yeah.
I was like, I need something yesterday.
Right. Yeah, but otherwise it's a lot cheaper to get it online. And but again, support your local comic book stores, or if you're in town somewhere that they do have one, go in and buy something that you really liked in digital and you want to physically own. Because I get it. There's a reason that I still am buying physical copies, because I want to support the industry to some extent beyond just digital format.
The last episode where we talked about indies, I went on a little diatribe talking about wondering how the artists were paid whenever I download something through Comixology or Marvel Unlimited or DC Universe. And I said, hey, if you guys know how that works, I'd love to find out. I still don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm repeating, like, if you happen to be the sort of person and you're in the business or whatever, and you know, like, how artists are compensated for, like, if I go and buy a digital version off of Amazon or Comixology directly, like I pay $10 for this trade, or, you know, how much are they artists getting versus, and by artists I mean the whole creative team, versus if I download something on Marvel,
right?
And I'm just reading it. What's the breakdown? I'm just really curious, because I am an artist, musician, composer. I know how I get paid or don't get paid for various mediums. I'm really curious for comics. And
something tells me the physical ones probably get them a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know, because there's a whole different thing. Like, if I was going to somebody's website and I bought a physical comic book from them, that money goes to them. If I'm buying it from even my local comic shop, a retailer is paying them somehow. Right. And I just don't know how that works. I am 100% team give artists their due.
Right.
You know, so, and the whole, at the same time, I feel like I'm doing that completely opposite sometimes whenever I'm doing these digital things, but at least I wonder if it's
per read, like a per stream, per download kind of
thing. For Prime reading, for Amazon on a Kindle, like I've heard that in some cases they get like a lump sum up front.
Right.
For saying,
just
yes,
like
put mine on Prime for a year. And in some cases it's just like, however much you read, like it keeps track. And when you return it, they get paid according to that. So like if you like it and you finish the whole thing and you send it back, it's like, hey, they finished your book. Where there are some that you read and you're like, I did not care for that. And then you return it 10 pages read. And I think that the payment is different through there. So maybe it's something like that. Maybe an amalgamation of the two.
Yeah, if you know, let us know. I'd be curious to know. And then we can kind of spread the word on how maybe if you decide you want to support, the best way to do that. Cool. Anything else before we wrap up, fellas?
Reviews.
Yes. So we found out that there was a source of podcast reviews that we had not been reading. And there's a chance that Ryan, fellow fan and longtime listener of Two Man, could have told us about this. I don't know. Ryan, I apologize if you did. But on Podchaser, which seems to be a relatively popular forum to listen to podcasts or get your podcast, your RSS feeds, we do have 2 reviews. One of them is from Ryan. I apologize because these are one from February of last year and the other from September of last year, but we're going to read them now. So this is on Podchaser. Ryan, aka New Guy, said, the great thing about this podcast is that these guys are off the beaten path. Everyone is reviewing, overviewing, explaining comics that everyone is reading, and then comes along the Two-Man Comic Book Club to teach me about the characters like Miss Marvel and Batwoman. If you're looking for a new comic book podcast, this needs to be in your subscription feed. 5 stars. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, man.
Now I'm going to give you a reality stone. Be responsible. The other one, we had a 5-star review from The Villain's Demand. They said, listen and follow along. If you love listening to fans do deep dives, then subscribe. These two break down every part of a comic from the writer to the letterer. We're getting better at that. These to the letterer, as they go through each issue, they give you background information, details of the pages that flows well enough as you listen so you can flip through your personal issue and keep up with them. Thank you, The Villain's Demand. Sorry it took so long to read your review. Speaking of, if we will be checking this from now on, so if you use Podchaser or any other platform that you can leave the review, leave the 5 stars. If it's one that maybe we don't know about, let us know on our social media platforms or any way, even if it's a personal account, we will find it, we will read it. Also on Apple Podcasts, which is the most popular platform to leave reviews on. If you do that, we will read the comments there as well. Just like, subscribe, share our podcast. We're still trying to grow this thing. Coming up, I mean, a ways, but, episode 100, be cool to do something fun for that. We'll hit that before the year's up.
We do have an episode 0 that we've never released.
Ooh.
It was our tester episode. Maybe that'll be episode 100.
Yeah, if you want to hear
See where we came from.
Hear the origin story. Of
Recorded on one
book
portable MP3 recorder put right between us.
with no sound prep.
Nothing.
About a debatably not fantastic comic book.
You check yourself.
So it's debatable.
That is a remarkable book.
Yeah, it's a book and it is a comic. Anything else before we wrap up?
I don't know.
One last roll call for social media. You can find me at Alex Wayne Miller. Wayne is Wayne, just like Bruce Wayne because I'm Batman. Drew.
Drew Morris Comp, Twitter, Drew Morris Composer, elsewhere. Torrance.
Don't ever look for me.
Don't look for Tori on social media or he will end you. And then our 2-man accounts.
We are at 2-Man Comic Book with the number 2 on Twitter, 2-Man Comic Book Club, everywhere else.
You like indie books? Do you have some that we didn't mention? Please let us know. We're looking for recommendations and maybe we'll give you a shout on the show if it ends up being a gold nugget.
We also haven't quite decided what deep dive series we're going to do next. So
yeah,
by the time this comes out, we've probably already recorded our next episode. But
we're always taking suggestions.
Who knows? Yeah. So let us know what you want us to read. If there's a series like 5-6 issues, that's kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah.
That you love and think that we would love, and the fans. So yeah, let us know.
Cool. That's been it. See y'all next time. Bye.
Okay.
Two-Man Comic Book Club podcast is hosted by Alex Miller and Drew Morris. Our graphic and logo work is done by Tessa Price, and our original compositions and theme music were composed by Drew Morris.